This episode is for the woman who has 30 pounds or less to lose and is looking to build muscle. She wants to be strong. She wants to be defined. Are you ready to dive in? Okay, let's go. Get in, losers. We're going lifting. I don't think you are going to be super excited about where I go with this episode today, but this is my opinion. I'm going to give it. You take it or leave it. And that's kind of that. So if you are somebody who has 30 pounds or less to lose, I do not think the cut is where you start. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, I just want to lose the weight. I'm going to lose the weight and then I'm going to have this body. And it doesn't work that way. If you are somebody who wants definition, you want to feel strong, you want muscle, you have to build it first. What can be really disappointing is saying, okay, I'm going to begin lifting and I'm going to go into a calorie deficit. And you start to lose body fat. And, you are lifting, you are getting relatively stronger, but then you finish the cut, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, where are the curves? You haven't been feeding your body enough to build those curves. And it's not to say that you have to go into a calorie surplus. One of the coolest things about being new to lifting is this thing called newbie gains. So if you're somebody who has never lifted before, and let's say, you 30 pounds or less to lose, it is 100% possible that as you begin the journey of lifting, your body is going to start to kind of change on its own. It's possible that you could start to see yourself building muscle and dropping body fat because you're speeding up your metabolism because you are taking the time to build this muscle. And that has nothing to do with being in a calorie deficit. It's just changing the stimulus from going from, potentially nothing or being a cardio queen to starting to lift these weights. So when I have clients like this who are like, I want my body to look strong and defined, but I still have this weight to lose, what I really like to encourage them to do is not a cut, just focus on building muscle. Focus on starting to eat the right macronutrient splits to maintain your weight. So we're eating enough protein, we're eating enough carbs, we're eating enough fat just to keep weight stable so that you can begin training and building muscle that way. This is such a special window of time. I knew nothing about this when I started lifting kettlebells, and I don't know if you've met my emotional support kettlebell, Ryan. But when I started using kettlebells, nobody told me about newbie gains. And truth be told, if somebody tried to talk to me about newbie gains at that part of my journey, I probably would have blocked them out because I was still focused on the idea of skinny over strong. But that's besides the point. If you are in that group where you do have some weight that you do want to lose, you owe it to yourself to just focus on building strength and building muscle. And something that's really important to understand, and this is something that I do in my signature program called Swing to Snatch that I love. And honestly, when I created this program at the time, I didn't even realize the magic that I was putting into it. When you begin to focus primarily on strength, you gain this awareness over your body where it's like, you can't fuck around. You can't fuck around. If your breath, if your lack of tension, if your alignment, if your timing, if all of these things are off and you're lifting in a strength category. So, when we talk about strength training and we have these different umbrellas, like 3 to 5 typically is like, I'm really trying to get stronger. Like I could lift a grown man out of the house if there was an emergency, versus I'm trying to build muscle. That's more so that 8 to 12 rep range, like visibly building the size of your muscle. And then we have anything that, think like 15 to 20 reps. And our focus is more so on muscular endurance, having the stamina to continue to push. When you focus on strength, there is less wiggle room to kind of like mess things up. If you are not on your A game, your body is going to know relatively quickly, even if you're working with something that some people might think is relatively light, but it is relatively heavy for you. So what's really cool about when you prioritize strength is your body becomes so much more aware of what it is you're doing, because it has to be. Because if you don't have all of these pieces dialed in, you're not going to be able to hit the rep range. You're not going to be able to do the lift. The wrong muscles are going to take over. So what's really cool about taking this time, like we do in Swing to Snatch, is you're really gaining the awareness of how to be strong, how to lift, so that when you go into a phase where maybe the focus is hypertrophy, because maybe eventually you do want body recomp and you're trying to build muscle, your body is primed to know, okay, the weight's not as heavy, but I know exactly what I need to do to execute to get the results I'm going after. And that's something that I think is a really big missing piece for a lot of people. I've even seen certain trainers who are just like, you don't need to lift that heavy. I think it's a disadvantage not to learn how to lift that heavy in the beginning. And it's not to say, day one, you're trying to do a 1 rep max for a deadlift. The way I set people up is we work with something where it might seem a little heavy for them in the beginning, but it's just heavy enough that we know the right muscles are going to turn on for them. And then once they understand what they should feel, what the alignment is, the breath is, the tension is, then I give them something heavy enough where it's like, you physically cannot do this for more than 5 reps. The body adapts very quickly. And we gain this knowledge of what needs to happen so that when it is time to go into this more focused muscle building phase, the body is able to adapt to that so much better than somebody who's kind of like going through the motions, who maybe isn't creating all the tension, isn't fully taking advantage of full range of motion and some of these other pieces that sometimes get lost. And I'll tell you, a lot of this stuff does get lost. I put up a video recently, a viral video. We're going to show it right here, right now. The amount of comments where people said things like, well, I don't see a difference. There is a very big difference between each of these 4 clips. And if you can't see it, it's not your fault. You don't know what you don't know, but I can tell you as a trainer with over a decade of experience that if you're lifting and you are not aware of these differences, that's probably one of the big reasons as to why you don't have the results that you're looking for. It's not just about progressive overload. It's not just about hitting the right macro splits. If you want to build muscle, your body needs to know how to lift. Lifting is a language. I like using the analogy of like French. If you were to ask somebody to teach you French in an hour, you'll probably learn how to say, hello, how are you? Where's the bathroom? But nobody's expecting you to know the whole language. And lifting is a language. So if you take the time to learn, if you take the time to focus in on strength, because, you really learn what it takes to lift this heavy weight. And then you go into a phase where the focus more so is building muscle. And again, this is like, I'm brand new. You can make a lot of progress very quickly. And I like to tell people who are in this like newbie gains category, if you could, minimum 3 months, that's like minimum, but more like 6 months to a year of really just kind of taking advantage of this and then going into a cut, you'll be psyched because you've actually taken enough time to to build some muscle to be revealed as you drop the body fat. 30 pounds to lose, it might not sound like a lot, but if you really just have 30 pounds to lose and you lose it, you are going to look extremely different. But if you want that definition, you have to take the time to build it first, which is why I think if you are in this camp and you can get on board with, okay, I'm going to eat at maintenance. I'm going to make sure I have, enough energy so I can crush these workouts. I can learn how to lift. Then you're going to be really psyched over the results. And the other thing that comes with this is just like getting in the habit of lifting. I think for a lot of people, it's almost like, oh, I'm going to do this for 3 months and I'm going to be totally changed. And it doesn't work that way. This is a journey. It's going to take time. And if you, do have 30 pounds to lose and you want to look super defined, okay, let's just use, my suggestion here of could it be maybe 6 months to a year of just building? Okay, that's a year. And then if you're going to go into a cut, that's probably going to be roughly 3 to 4 months. And then once you finish a cut, you want to take the time to get out of the cut and bring your metabolism back up to something that is healthy for you. You're talking about, a year to a year and a half of committing to the process. The only way people are able to stay in that for that long, and to be honest, that's really not that long, is creating the habits, becoming a different person, showing up for the workouts. And not everything needs to be perfect all the time. I think there's this, misconception that I have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. But you do want to strive for progress, and you absolutely want to be present, showing up for yourself. Consistency is such a big component of actually changing your body. And, 100% effort is going to look different day to day. Your 100% having a good night's sleep, having enough food, having enough water, not having worked out the day before, it's going to look very different than you just got off of a flight. You have a sick child. And, you found out that grandmama has like a second family. Like, there are these different pieces of life that are going to hit us, are going to impact us. And it's your responsibility to continue to show up to the best of your ability so that you are seeing these changes take place. And change can happen, but change is not something that's necessarily going to happen super quickly. It also kind of just depends on how you define change, how you define progress. I can teach anybody how to deadlift in an hour, right? So if your goal is, I want to be strong enough I can deadlift, great. That's going to be something that happens really quick. But, I can't just take somebody who's brand new to deadlifting 200 pounds in an hour. You have to show up consistently. And with consistency, progress happens. But, something that I do see a fair amount, especially in swing to snatch, this has happened multiple times. I get people who are brand new to lifting. And yeah, they have some weight that they want to lose, but they do want to build muscle and they do want to build strength. And they do this program for 3 months. And then they're like, okay, I'm ready to go into my cut. And there's this expectation that they're going to look so different after the cut. Do they look different? Yeah, they do look different. But you need to set up the expectations of the amount of time you're going to put into something with what the outcome is going to be. When you see people who are getting ready for like a bodybuilding competition, there's a lot of time that goes into something like that. It's probably not, a 6-month process for most. I can't fully speak to that because I haven't been in that world directly. But when I talk to peers and to friends who have been in that space, it takes time. And, something that is definitely more so at an advantage being in the bodybuilding world is doing more of those specific split types of workouts. Whereas with kettlebells, everything is very much total body focused. And when people come into swing to snatch with me, we're learning the language of hardstyle kettlebell technique. So not everything is super focused on, let's just, build up your quads so that they're ready to, smash watermelons. It's not really the vibe. But when you come out of a program like that, you really did learn the language. That is French. That is, not fluency in French, but I can I can put you on an airplane to France and I can know that you are going to be able to enjoy your trip. Maybe you don't know everything that's happening in French, but you know plenty to enjoy yourself. What I want to add to that is the fact that the cut is going to be great for when you're ready to go into the cut. Cuts are very simple in terms of what it is you need to do. You need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to get enough rest and recovery. You need to hit the right macro splits, get enough water. You still need to work out. You need to lift. You need to get the steps. The things that you need to do are very simple. And once you've gotten into the habit of, okay, I know how to track my food. I know how to track my water. I know I'm getting enough sleep. I know I'm doing the right workouts. When you can get all of that to a point where it's like, this is just a part of who I am. And then we add the increase of now we're going to slowly start to cut calories. It's just a lot easier to stay in it because you have already become this person who has these habits. When you're trying to do everything very quickly before you've really become this version of yourself who's ready to handle more, you can absolutely do it, but it's going to be harder. And I don't know, I'm just kind of the person who's like, I don't want to make it harder if it means it's going to take more time, but it's going to be more sustainable in the long run. That's just the path that I would rather take at this point as somebody who used to take every single flippin' shortcut she could have found. Like, oh my gosh, I don't think it's ever worth being like, I would be so much further ahead if I just did things this way. But to an extent, I know I would be further ahead if I just played the long game in the beginning and I focused on strong over skinny. But that's not what happened, and that's okay. And if you are somebody who is really ready to give into the process of changing your body, you have 30 pounds or less to lose, you're new to lifting, you want a strong and defined looking body, take the time to learn how to lift. Take the time to be at maintenance and build some muscle before you think about going into the cut. Can you build muscle and cut at the same time? Technically, yes. Is it really hard? Yes. Are the results going to be different than if you took dedicated phases? Yes. But I can't tell you it's not possible because we do have science backing it up. But what I will say is, you just have to ask yourself, is it more important that I'm, doing everything in a way that makes me feel really comfortable? Or am I willing to get uncomfortable to really see a change happen sooner than later? I can't answer that for you. But I will tell you, it is so worth it. Oh my gosh. It is so worth it to have that day where you look at yourself in a photo or you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, oh my gosh, it worked. I gave into the process. I was scared and it worked. Taking the time to build, yeah, it's hard. Taking the time to cut, yeah, it's hard. Watching other people have the results that you would kill for, it's tough. But what's so cool about building muscle and getting a strong and defined body, you can't buy it. You earn it. And when you take the time to earn it for yourself, you feel like, wow, anything is possible. Anything is possible. So listen, you don't have to go about it this way. If you're really that uncomfortable with your size right now and you're just like, I just need to do the cut, but understand that after you do that, you will probably not have the muscle that you could have, and you will probably need to either spend more time building that muscle at maintenance or going into some type of a calorie surplus. So you can go those other paths, absolutely. But if I were starting over again and I had 30 pounds or less to lose, I would 1,000% take a year to get really good at lifting, to build some serious muscle, develop the habits that are required to sustain a lifestyle of strong and defined, and then go into a fat loss phase. That's what I would do. That's what I would love for you to do. If you wanted to become my client, that would be the conversation we would have. Then maybe you would be my client, maybe you wouldn't be my client, but that is just my opinion. At the end of the day, this really comes down to results versus disappointment. If you want strong and defined, you have some weight to lose, you're new to lifting, you take the time to lift, you take the time to build. When it comes to going into that cut, you're going to have something really cool to reveal. So the choice is yours. What do you want to do? Thanks for listening to today's podcast episode. Please make sure to leave us a rating and review, and we'll catch you in the next one.